Good afternoon. Welcome to Williams Island TV. I'm Bob Shelley. I want to welcome you. Today we have an amazing guest that you'll really enjoy listening to, Dr. Elliot Levy. He just wrote a book, How to Live to 120, about longevity, but I don't want to go into too much now because you're going to get to hear it directly from the doctor. But I do want to welcome you, and we'll be introducing Dr. Levy in just a few minutes. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back, and I'd like to thank you for watching. It's always exciting and a pleasure when we have people that are our neighbors that live on the island that have such special abilities, special knowledge, things that they've done throughout their lives, their careers. But not only are they our neighbors and they do this, but they reinvent themselves. And the gentleman, the doctor that we're going to talk to today, his claim to fame is he was my mother's doctor. Forgetting all his medical training, but Dr. Levy is very well renowned as a endocrinologist, as well as now longevity, etc. And we're going to talk about that. But what's wonderful is he's on the island. He lives here. He's our neighbor. But today, longevity has become such a major issue. Everybody's looking for better ways to live longer, but not only live longer, but have a quality of life in those years as they get older. And I think that's as important. And the book he has written, Live to 120, really goes into a lot of this. We're not here to sell books today. We're here to talk about something that you may all be able to do, we may all be able to do, that helps us get through the next 20, 30 years of our life and maybe expand our longevity to the point where we enjoy it a little bit more. We all reach a certain point. I always say this because of the doctor being here, what he's doing. We all work to a certain point, and at the epitome of our career, when we have achieved and we have learned the most we could learn in our career, we retire. And what do we do with all that knowledge? What do we do with all that we've learned over the years? And what's fascinating about Dr. Levy is he's found a way to talk about something, but to give back. Take all he's learned, all he's looking into, maybe change direction slightly, but use his medical ability to give us back what he has learned. So retirement is not something in his plans. This is his retirement, giving back, working on new things, etc. So I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Elliot Levy, our neighbor. Like I said, he was my mom's doctor, but he's world-renowned. I'm going to let you talk about your credentials, and then we'll go into your book and what that means.
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction. I wasn't expecting something so nice, but you really covered all aspects of my life, and I appreciate the opportunity to share what I know with our audience today. And as I talk, I don't like to make recommendations. I just make suggestions, because this is really the obligation of the doctor, is to help people become aware of things they may not be aware of, because life is all about making decisions. And if you make make decisions in your life based on information that you know, it makes those decisions easier and usually better. So what I talk about in my book is a lot of information, but it's suggestions about things that maybe any individual has not even considered, but ought to think about as their life goes on. As far as my training, I had an interesting past. I'm actually on my third career. That I started as a research scientist. I went to a school called Carnegie Mellon, which even back in those days was on the cutting edge of technology. I got interested in biomedical engineering, and then had to make the decision, do I want to stay on in a PhD program, or do I want to go to medical school? And a doctor during the summer that I worked for said to me in so many words, if you like taking care of patients, then you should go to medical school. But if you know you want to do a research career, then get a PhD. But with an MD degree, you can actually do research as well. So that advice a long time ago, maybe 60 years ago, really steered me in the direction of becoming a physician. And what I didn't know at the time is I really enjoyed what I did. I love the interaction with my patients. I love listening to them, finding out what was wrong with them, helping them through problems, but also getting to know their families, their children, their parents in some cases. And I really became very important factors in many people's lives. And when I wrote my book, I actually wrote the way I would talk to my patients, trying to educate them on information that they need to know. After I went to medical school at Northwestern University in Chicago. I did my residency at Washington University in St. Louis, my postdoc fellowship at University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And as they all say, once you live in warm weather, it's hard to live anywhere else. So we relocated from Los Angeles to Miami in 1975, and we've been living in South Florida since then. All three of our children were born and reared here, and we plan to stay here for a long time.
That's wonderful. Well, first, we know each other. We go back a long time. The doctor's wife was in the choir at our synagogue, so to speak. I wasn't allowed to be in the choir, but she was, Debbie. Um, but I know, and it's interesting because you talk about you love medicine because you had interrelationship with your patients, and today, unfortunately, with insurance, it's almost impossible. I mean, some of my friends who are doctors tell me if they get 10 minutes with a patient in a day, it's a lot. You were more of a specialty, I say. I guess you had the luxury of time, but so many doctors today don't have that anymore to meet with the patients and develop that. If they don't see 30 patients a day, they can't make it.
Right. Um, I hate to say this, but my personal feelings, the two things that have really been destructive to medicine is really the electronic medical records. Because instead of talking to a patient, a doctor talks to the computer and types in information, sometimes doesn't even look at the patient. Now, if you're successful enough and you can have a scribe follow you around, that might solve that problem, but most people can't. The other thing is the influence of private equity coming into healthcare, where doctors sell their practices to a company with the understanding, well, they're going to not work as hard and make more money. But the fact is that private equity sets the rules, how long you spend with a patient, how many patients you have to see each day, how many hours you have to work on the weekends. And it becomes a lot more corporate than my era. And I still like the idea of talking to my patients, seeing them in the hospital, knowing about their families, calling in the prescriptions for them, because I always thought that's what doctors do. Nowadays, things have become more complex.
So I guess the question is, if you were going to do it all over again in today's world, would you do medicine?
Yeah, I love my career. My older son is in medical as a physician. He went to actually the same medical school that I did, and he loves his career. I think things are different, but what happens is most doctors don't know how to adapt to changing environments. So when things change, the good doctors can actually change. The ones that are kind of stuck in their ways have the hardest time.
So talking about your book, because I want to get into this because I find it fascinating, and it's longevity, primarily living to it's better quality of life, etc. Donnie Sofer, who obviously built Turnberry and pretty much all of most of Aventura, has a longevity center that he did with, I believe, Dr. Hurd at the Jackson Memorial, I believe it is. And they were specializing in the study of stem cell research.
Right.
And of course, what they would do is they had the testing and everything was done here, but they couldn't do the injection here. They had to fly out of the country to do it.
Right.
Um, so that's one aspect of it. And I'm assuming the new stem cells rejuvenate and it works in various areas of medicine. But yours is more of a lifestyle change, isn't it?
Actually, I divide longevity into two things that people can do.
Uh-huh.
One is what I call low tech, and the other is what I call high tech. So, low tech refers to lifestyle change. We know that there's at least five things: eating properly, exercising properly, keep working, sense of community and a sense of spirituality. And if we have enough time and you'll ask me at the end, I'll tell you number 6 also. Then there's the other part.
Arlene, we have to remember number 6 for later.
Actually, I usually don't tell people what number 6 is. I said you have to buy the book.
Oh, okay.
For that, for this audience, I'll be happy to share that.
Okay.
Okay. The other half is what's going on in the research labs, and it's amazing the stuff that's happening. We understand that aging is a disease. It's not an inevitable consequence of getting older. It's a real disease. It's characterized by a lot of things going on with the immune system, a lot of things going on inside cells. And the research is, what can we do to prevent the consequences of aging, or to at least slow down the process? And they're making good progress. Stem cells is one of the areas. There's also things that people might not think about that are not so easily available. They're intravenous infusions, medications, um, infrared sauna, the hot cold plunges. Um, um, People like to go to these centers where they can get all these treatments all at once. Unfortunately, we don't have enough information as yet to tell us which of these non-lifestyle factors make a difference. I'm hoping that one day they will, but right now, it's really up to the individual.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, this is stuff that I didn't learn in medical school. I graduated in medical school over 50 years ago. We weren't taught this stuff, but it's all come to forth in the last 5 or 10 years. Unfortunately, in the world of longevity, much of the longevity centers are what I call profiteers. And in the slides that I have when I show a talk, there's a lot of storefront operations, and you read what's typed on their windows. They offer all these kinds of treatments without really knowing that any of them do any good. So it's not real scientists that are entering this field. It's more profiteers. Sometimes they're medicine people, sometimes they're physical therapists, sometimes they're chiropractors, on and on and on. Anyone who wants to know a little bit about it will jump into the longevity field. In fact, I was listening to a radio station a couple of weeks ago. They were advertising a franchise for longevity centers. So I'm worried about that. And it's not that they do bad things, but I just think that many of these centers do things that don't have their basis in science. In my background from the time I started my career was really as a physician scientist. So everything that I recommend is based on research studies that have been published in peer-reviewed journals that have facts and statistics to support them, as opposed to some of these other centers.
Now, not to interrupt, but let me ask you about what you just said. If Bob Shelley wanted to go to Dr. Levy, I read your book, I'm interested in it, it makes sense to me. Very few will actually do medicines, drips, stem cell, etc., because either it's too costly or it's something that frightens people. They don't understand it. Lifestyle changes probably are more readily available to the average if they knew what those lifestyle changes were. I mean, is it plant-based diet? Is it exercise? Is it reading? Because as we talked briefly before, I'm reading a book about how nutrition, exercise, and mental stimulation really do help the onset of Alzheimer's, dementia, or quality of life. So how do you, not me, how do you convince Bob Shelley these things are going to help you in your life and they're not that difficult to do?
I agree with everything you said, except for the last statement. They're not that difficult to do. Changing one's life is very difficult to do. For example, let's say you walk into a doctor's office and you're not feeling well, and the doctor checks your blood pressure and your blood pressure is high. He does blood tests, and the blood test shows that your blood glucose level is high and perhaps your cholesterol level is high. And he finds out that you have a history of heart disease and you're having these strange symptoms that might be suggestive of that. So one of the things that the doctor would do would be to say, oh, I think you need to change how you eat, to change how much you exercise, to do all these other factors. But go see this person and then come back in 3 months and we'll see how you're doing. That never works.
No.
That's the problem.
That's the point I'm making.
Exactly.
It has to be something they can do on their own to some extent with direction.
Okay. So let's talk about the changes first,
Right.
and then I'll make my suggestions when
Please,
when
please.
we get through. People actually are looking for a quick fix. Everyone would rather take a prescription or get an IV infusion or get a treatment and say that's all that I need to do and I don't have to work hard. That's human nature. But I'm talking about eating differently because the information is finally starting to roll in that plant-based diets really do make a difference. The Mediterranean diet is the only diet that's ever been studied to show that it has any beneficial effects on health and longevity. And Mediterranean diet can be defined in many different terms. Um, if you do a Google search for Mediterranean diet, you'll probably see 6 pages of information and recipe books and places to go. But Mediterranean diet is really how people supposedly in the area around the Mediterranean Sea eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, not so much meat, very little alcohol, and a lot of grains, because that seems to be the factors. But then the people who have studied it even further try to change the protein source away from animal and more towards plant-based. And that particular information is probably the most important, that there are very good studies to show that there's at least a 25% chance of increasing your longevity if you're in a plant-based diet. The second is exercise. Very few people exercise. The National Institutes of Health Division has come out with recommendations about how much people over 65 should exercise. And the amount of time is not that long, perhaps 45 minutes a week. And yet only 16% of people over 65 do that much exercise.
Now, is it because all their life they had to work and they didn't? It wasn't part of their life? Because the younger today are very involved with it, aren't they?
Yeah, you're right. No one knows, but some of the ideas are sometimes perhaps a woman doesn't like the way she looks in exercise clothes, so she won't go to the gym. Or people don't like to sweat, or they don't want to be seen because they're not very good, or they start doing something, they get exhausted after 10 minutes. So there's a lot of reasons, and everyone is going to have his or her own reason why they don't want to exercise. But that's a relatively easy
Mhm.
condition to fix, especially a place like Williams Island, where you have the most beautiful, magnificent gym with machines and classes all day long that really cater to the people who live here. No excuses. Mental stimulation is also very important as far as I'm concerned. And I see too many people um, go into retirement and say, I'm going to do nothing all day long, which is fine for maybe 2 weeks. But after that, then people start saying, what am I going to do with my time? And there's a lot of information now that stimulating your brain, teaching yourself new things. I happen to like teaching yourself computer skills because many people in the baby boomer generation don't have so many computer skills. And it's very easy to learn. You can teach yourself if you want to go to a YouTube video. You can go to the Apple store in the mall and they have classes all day long, or you can have your grandchildren show you how to do things, but keep stimulating yourself. There's also a tremendous number of computer games that are out there that you're constantly stimulating you to think about new things. I personally am working in a slightly different field, and I needed the opportunity to create videos. Now, videos tend to be very expensive, especially if you have to hire a professional voiceover person to read them and then to go to production. But I found out about a computer software program that uses artificial intelligence. So I taught myself how to use AI to create the videos with avatars. Avatars are artists that are fake, and the artists all look different. They have different color skins, they have different genders, different preferences about their own lifestyle, and we're able to um, create these videos. So that's something that I taught myself how to do.
So that keeps you going.
It keeps you
Yes,
going.
keeps your mind active.
Right. The third thing is a sense of community, and I think that's very important. During the times of the pandemic a few years ago, loneliness first started appearing as a serious problem. And this past summer, I had an opportunity to meet Dr. Vivek Murthy, who's the United States Surgeon General. and he was talking to me about the loneliness epidemic. There are 50% of people over the age of 65 would consider themselves to be lonely. And especially in big cities, probably the worst city to live in is New York City because it's so big, but life is so impersonal that a lot of people just are confined to their house, and especially during COVID where they couldn't leave. And nowadays with food delivery, and Amazon, you don't really have to leave your house at all. So that tends to be a real serious problem. Again, a place like Williams Island is an ideal place to live as you age because there's a lot of other people who are similar to you with interests and ages. So it's a wonderful sense of community. And
So let me ask you, let's just take Williams Island as a microcosm of the world.
sure.
You have all ages here, and our demographics are dropping, where it used to be maybe 65 average, but could be 55 now, more kids coming in. But you take somebody 65 and over, who probably is coming from the Northeast, the Northwest, whatever, didn't really exercise a lot, didn't have time to go on these crazy special diets, was primarily a meat diet or meat and potatoes or whatever. And now they come down here, but they're already in their 60s and possibly 70s or whatever. Is it too late to make these changes? And if they do, does it really expand and extend their life?
Yep. Um, there's always an event that causes people to want to make a change. Sometimes it's being diagnosed with a medical problem, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease. Sometimes it's an event, you have a near-death experience, an auto accident, and I got to do something about my life. Sometimes your best friend dies, or your good friends develop Alzheimer's disease, and you look at your environment, you said, I want to do something about this. I think it's virtually impossible to do it on your own. And I'm a very big proponent of what I call residential programs. And I define that as a place where you leave your home and you go for as long as you can afford to stay away, but 2 or 3 weeks. And during that time, you remove yourself of all the stress in your lifestyle and you're able to eat properly, to exercise properly, classes, organizational things, activities all the time. And there's a lot of those around. Some people like the expensive ones, Canyon Ranch, for example. There's a place in California that I know called Optimum Health. And I personally like a place in West Palm Beach called the Hippocrates Institute, or now it's called Hippocrates Longevity Center. And the idea is you go there and you check in and you stay there for 3 weeks, and there isn't a soul that I know who doesn't stay the whole thing, who doesn't leave campus, who only eats what they're given, to walk away saying, "Wow, I didn't realize how good I could feel." As opposed to going on a cruise for 2 weeks, and unfortunately, my wife and I went on a Christmas cruise. Too much food, too much drinking. I didn't really have any of that, but too much inactivity, too many people in the gym. And I walked off the ship, I think I gained 5 pounds,
Mhm.
but I think I've lost it back because now I'm back to my lifestyle. But if you go to one of those centers and you stay there and you make your mind up that it's gonna work for you, you're gonna be really happy and you're gonna walk out saying, "Wow, I can really do this." Because it's hard to do anything, stopping cigarettes, stopping drinking. It's hard to do anything for the first few.
Okay, but to go back to my thinking, we have roughly 5,000 people on the island. Now, we know realistically we're not getting one-tenth of those people to go to these places. I just came back from Miraval. I could relate to what you're saying. Um, my problem was I went and I was almost laughing to myself while I was there because I said, I just left paradise to go to a place. I'm doing exactly the same thing, except it's costing me $2,000 a day to do what I could do home for free.
And the food's too good there.
And the food's too good.
Yes.
But it didn't stop me from thinking about what was going on back home, issues that I had to deal with there. Yes, you can't take a phone in the rooms. You can't go, you do the classes, the food, everything. We did everything exactly right.
Good.
And I felt good. But the masses that live here are not going to do that. They're going to want to take advantage in some manner. Look, we take the easy way out.
Right.
And if I go to the restaurant tonight, I'll have a piece of fish instead of a steak. And I'll say, wow, look what I just did. I was healthy tonight. But one night doesn't make you healthy.
Right.
It's like you said, it's a lifestyle change. how do we and you know something, you said something very interesting. You can't do it alone. But if people aren't gonna go to these places, how do we make a change in our life?
I think one of the most destructive factors is going out to dinner. Now, going out to dinner is more than just ordering food and eating it, it's the social experience. So, the social experience of going out with friends, people you haven't seen in a while, people you just meet, people that you were introduced to. So, the social aspect of going out to dinner is wonderful. But going into a restaurant is an easy place to get sabotaged because restaurant food doesn't kind of fit into what you're supposed to be eating. So, how do you handle that? That's a serious problem.
Mhm.
So, what I did when I wrote the book is I looked at other books about health, and 50% of the book is text, and 50% is recipes. Now, I know myself, and I know my friends that live on Williams Island. I say the majority of people go out to dinner 5 or 6 nights a week, would you
Yep.
say? So, they go to places, and there's a lot of wonderful restaurants in the neighborhood or close by. And most of the food is very unhealthy. So what I did is instead of giving recipes, I went and took menus and typed up the menus and put them in the book. And my co-author is really good at this stuff. And he went through, or we went through together, the menus of maybe 50 restaurants. And we said, if you were to go to this restaurant, this is what you might think about ordering. And I also tell people that before you go out to dinner, especially to a restaurant that you haven't been before, go on the website of the restaurant. You will always find a website and you will always find a menu. And take a look at the menu and see ahead of time what you can order. And if it's really no choices, maybe you can convince your friends. But for the most part, if you're really stuck, you can usually get by even the best, most expensive restaurants with side dishes or vegetables or a salad. And people are going to make fun of you. They're going to call you the vegetables, or they're going to say, what are you doing this? Or where do you get your protein? Or why are you doing this to yourself? And what it is I think they're just not willing to make the changes themselves.
Well, that's the problem. People aren't willing to make the changes.
Exactly. So when you go to a residential place, you develop a lot of courage and a lot of strength that you can do these things. And it makes your life so much easier when you know ahead of time what you're going to order.
So your book is Live to 120. So how does somebody add 40 years to their life, 30 years to their life, whatever, even 10 years to their life?
So all the suggestions that I talk about with the diet, the exercise, the working, spirituality, sense of community, all those will help you improve yourself. And I give the example. Let's say you decide to go to Las Vegas, and say you want to play blackjack, and you sit down at the blackjack table, and you must know that your odds of winning a given hand are 42%, and the odds of the dealer winning a hand are 49%, and there's some ties in the middle. But you also know that sometimes you have to make decisions. Should you double down? Should you split cards? Should you draw, depending on what the dealer has? There's a bunch of decisions that you have to make, but all that does is improve your odds. So I'd say improve your odds the best you can, but nothing replaces having luck on your side. So if you do everything right, you're going to improve your odds. It's not going to guarantee that you're going to have not going to have something happen to you, but at least it's going to make you feel that you're contributing to your own longevity outcome.
So so what you're doing is what most people don't do, take control of their life.
Exactly.
That's really, I guess, how it sums up.
Right.
You have to say, okay, I'm gonna put my destiny in my hands. I'm not gonna let chance take care of my life.
And the other thing that I suggest, and you alluded to it before, it's really better to go with somebody, a spouse, a child, a close friend, someone who is going to be with you to support you, or really you support each other as you go through life and the decisions that you have to make.
So basically, from what you're saying, it's three things. It's improving your diet, it's improving your exercise and lifestyle, and improving your mental stimulation, let's say, whether it's crossword puzzles, whether computers, whether it's, and also socialization, talking to people, being out there with people. Because I see so many people that they break a hip, they hurt a leg, they come up to we have the therapy center in the spa. And it's such a shame because these are people that barely can walk when they walk in there. And I don't know how much better they were before they got hurt because they weren't in good shape to begin with.
Correct.
How do we, I mean, if there was a secret sauce to this whole thing, and I said, okay, Dr. Levy, we're going to open up in our spa your office, and you're no charge. People can come in, talk to you, and you can walk them through and be there to be their support system. How would you do that? How do you get people to get buy into this? Because there's so many books. Like I told you, I've been reading a book about brain food, for a better word. And it talks about plant-based food, it talks about exercise, it talks about mental stimulation. And I believe that sincerely. I think my father retired at 55, and at 61 he had Alzheimer's. Or not that he had it, it came through.
Exactly.
And I always wondered, and he was brilliant, brilliant. But unfortunately, he became a vegetable in his lifestyle before this happened. And I see people today, 70, 80 years old, that are active, that are doing things. And then I see people that are 60, people that are 60 that looks 80.
Those are hard questions because I don't know that anybody has the answers to them
Yeah.
because every person is different. Genetic background is different. Lifestyle is different. Luck is different.
Luck.
But you have to have a reason to want to change. And that's the hardest part is I can't convince anybody if they feel okay, I mean, I feel perfect. But usually things like, well, my kid's getting married and
You want to get in the dress. Yeah.
I want to look good for that. Or I'm going to a college reunion. I want to look good for that. Or um, unfortunately, a spouse dies and I have to go on the dating scene again. I want to look good for that kind of situation. And sometimes that motivates people. But in general, there really isn't any one factor, but somebody has to do it for themselves. And again, they have to have support from home because if husband wants to do something, but wife wants to go to French food every night, that may not be a healthy situation.
So a lot of people are going to see this today. And I would, if they buy the book, I would love it. And I think it's so important that people do listen to what you're talking about. There's a lot of people that talk about longevity. And I think today more than ever, there's more people buying into it. There's more people listening than before. Because I think that the fact that you live longer today also has given people more years after their retirement to do something and get involved with other things. But it also has a double-edged sword. It could be that they do nothing.
Right.
What do you tell these people?
By the way, the government is very worried about that
Yeah.
because right now the average age of a person living is around 76, 77. So Medicare has to plan pretty much for that. But if people are now living to 110,
The whole
that's an
world.
extra 20 years of taking care of them, and who's gonna pay for all that? So that's a real serious issue in this. Um, it's hard for me to say what to tell a person. If somebody comes to me and shares with me their experiences, I could make a bunch of suggestions. But I still think if they're really taking it seriously, they need to go to a place, a hardcore place, not a fancy dancy place where they just cater to wealthy people. You want to go to a place where they can cater as you as a person, not how much money you have. I'm sorry for saying it like that.
No, but it's true. I found that with Miraval, very honestly. It
Exactly.
was a lot of money, and basically you decided there was nobody telling you, "Here's the cost of planning for you for the time you're there." You could
Exactly.
pick this, you could pick that, but if you don't do anything, you could sit in your room the whole time.
Right. So those are issues. But if you go to the proper place and you take it seriously and you live the lifestyle, and most importantly, you start feeling better, then that sometimes motivates people. The problem with anything in healthcare is what's called recidivism. When people themselves on a diet, so to speak, and they lose 15 pounds and they're happy, they're pretty much guaranteed as soon as they go off that diet, then they gain it all back. So that's called recidivism. That's a very high incidence in people's lives. And the same way with the diets that they go on, when you go on one of these crash diets, you tend to plateau. And the body is amazingly well built. When that happens, certain hormones are stimulated that slow down your metabolism and cause you to become hungry. And when that's sort of to replace the weight and the mass that you've lost. So when you're on a Mediterranean diet or a pure vegan diet, you tend to lose those cravings and you tend to be able to last for a while. But tell people, don't expect one and done. I tell them to go someplace, go for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. In 3 months, go back for a week. And 3 months later, you go back for a week. It's like going back for a refresher because it's easy to do gung ho when you're finished. But as soon as you kind of get back and too much pressure on going to fancy restaurants and to not going to the gym and going on cruises, whatever it is. And that's how you get yourself into trouble. So people are their own worst enemies, if you want to say it like
So
that.
basically, when you go to these places, you're detoxing your body and your mind.
I don't use that word, but that's probably appropriate.
You're cleansing yourself to start fresh.
Exactly. Or actually, you're exposing, I say it a little opposite. You're exposing your body to a healthier way of living. And maybe that's what your body's wants.
So let me ask you, just because you touched on a little bit, you obviously, the field you were in is very similar. When I say similar in drug usage to what they're using for weight loss today, because originally some of these shots, the Ozempics, whatever, weren't they originally used for diabetes?
Yeah, that actually is a certain classification of medications have been around for a few
That's what
years.
I thought.
Yeah, and that's what it was originally designed for. But what they found out is half the people were losing weight.
Yeah.
So the marketing people for the pharmaceutical industry decided that maybe they should rebrand the product as a weight loss medication. Now, people ask me all the time, what do I think about them?
Hmm.
About 2 years ago, I had a chance to meet a man named Bob Kushner, who's the head of the obesity program at Northwestern Medical School, and I heard him speak, and we became friends. He gave me his book, and he was the lead author in the, GLP agonist research, and these medications really do work, they keep people weight off, they take away their appetite. Yeah, there's some side effects, but the side effects are amazingly few and far between.
Yeah.
The problem right now is it's only available by injection and it tends to be very expensive.
Hmm.
So you segregate out a bunch of people who couldn't otherwise have it, but it looks like it really does work. The interesting part about it may actually have even more use in the world of addiction because it seems to work on the part of the brain that controls addiction and addictive behaviors. And possibly eating for a lot of people is an addiction. And if you can take a medication that will actually help you with that, then you may actually improve your life. Unfortunately, as soon as you stop the treatment, you go right back to the way you are.
Which is every time.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but this no with medication. So this actually becomes very important that people have to face the fact that they have to be on this treatment forever. Now, one day we're hoping to have oral medications. We hope that the prices will go down. We hope we figure out why certain people have side effects in their stomach that are not necessarily helpful. And that's going quickly. And very soon we'll have those answers. Then we have another classification of medications that are similar, but I think that's going to be the way to go.
So basically, what this has done, in line with what you're doing, is it has become a motivational factor that if you take this and you start to look better. Now, yes, it's an easy way to do it without going to the gym 4 days a week. But at the same token, I find that most people that are doing this feel better about themselves, have more self-esteem. Now they feel good. They want to get out there, and they do start doing the other things.
Right. Well, let me tell you some of the reverse of that.
Yeah.
It only works in about 60-70% of the time. So if you don't eat properly and you don't exercise properly, you may be one of those non-responders.
Okay.
The second thing is that you can get these medications with very little medical supervision. And I know of young women who might be in their 30s and 40s who might be 5 pounds too heavy, and they go and convince their doctor to give them those medications, which I think are dangerous.
Hmm.
So I kind of think that this should only be used by doctors who really understand the treatment and the side effects and the implications. And I really think it should not be used for people who want cosmetic weight loss, but it's being sold a lot, especially
I was
in,
going to say,
in
yeah.
the
I
big
mean,
cities.
unfortunately, it's hard to discriminate anymore. Who gets it?
Right. Let me throw in one more thing
Please.
that I haven't had a chance to say, and that has to do with something that I relatively recently found out about, and that's the world of spirituality. Now, this summer, I had a chance to have breakfast with a man named Francis Collins. Francis Collins was the head of the National Institutes of Health, NIH, And then he actually took on the project of the Genome Project, in which he and his laboratory colleagues sequenced the DNA sequence of the human cells. And he's a extraordinarily well thought of scientist. And he's talked about religion and medicine. And then during the Q&A period, I said, Dr. Collins, are you aware of any research that if you have a spiritual life, a strong spiritual life, you'll live longer? And he didn't hesitate. He said, absolutely. And being the kind of person that he is, the next day he emailed me a recent article that talked about that. And I like to share that with you
Please.
because it gave me a whole lot of insight. Spirituality can be defined or broken down to two areas. One is called religiosity, and the other is true spirituality. Religiosity means you follow the rules of the religion that you choose. And in some religions are stricter than others, but but the other half may be just as important. Meaning, are you a good person? Are you philanthropic? Do you help others? Are you good to your parents? All the kinds of things that we think about as being a good soul really do make a difference. And this particular research group found that lifespan was increased by 17% by people who go to religious services once a week. So I share that with rabbis
Very
and religious
interesting.
people so I think that spirituality may actually have a role to play. Now, how that happens is actually talked about in the book. It may have to do with mental health and relaxation and self-confidence and doing things right for yourself. But it's not known for sure, but those are just reported observations. So number 5 among my recommendations is have a spiritual life, believe in a higher power, and attend services to the best of your abilities, because you may end up getting a lot more out of it than you think.
Well, and going along with what you just said, um, and you said leading a good life. And it's not about what religion you are, it's about the religion of your own life. How do you treat other people? It's funny, I taught a class at the yeshiva in New York on ethics and business. And I said, I'm going to the yeshiva to speak. What am I going to talk about? Who am I to tell these kids what to do? It was a graduate class. And I went to the rabbi, coincidentally in this case, and I said, Rabbi, what do I talk about? And he pulls a book off the shelf out of thousands of books. He goes to this one particular book, opens the book, and he said, here, this tells you that the first question you're going to be asked when you go upstairs is how'd you treat your fellow man in business? And it goes exactly along with what you're talking about. How'd you lead your life? But doesn't that really go along with it? If you lead a good life, it's usually because you like yourself as well. You enjoy yourself, you enjoy your life, you enjoy the people that are around you. You have the ability to give because you're satisfied, so to speak. Is there a correlation in any way there, Liz?
That I don't know, but I know that I've run into a lot of rude people, especially in South Florida, a lot of rude people,
Yeah,
a lot of nasty people, a lot of people who clearly put themselves first, whether it's when they're driving a car or cutting a line.
but that's the point I'm making. Those people are not going to lead a good life.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, we don't know.
That bothers me,
Uh-huh.
but probably more than anything else about people doing it like that, only thinking about themselves. Not so much other parts of the country. You don't see that in the Midwest, but it tends to be more of an East Coast kind of thing. I'm sorry if I don't mean to be generalized.
No, no, no.
But
And hey, I was a builder for God knows how many years in Florida.
yeah,
And on the East Coast of Florida, they came from the Northeast and they were rude and they were always arguing. On the West Coast of Florida, they came from the Midwest and they were a pleasure to deal with.
exactly. Now, I don't know what that means, but that's just an observation.
All right. So before we end, what's number 6?
Keep having sex.
That's it.
And there actually are some amazing facts that I had one of my friends who's a assistant professor at Harvard Medical School write about the beneficial effects of continuing to have sex.
Hmm.
And it used to be that you reached a certain age and the factory was closed and you're done and that's it. But that's not true. They have all kinds of studies of the beneficial effects of continuing to have sex, and how you define that is up to the individual or to the couple or to the people involved. But it's still something that if you can do it, so to speak, it may actually help you. And as I say, if something is good for you and it feels good, just do it.
I like that. Okay, good. So just real quickly on this book, what are 3 things? I mean, you talked about 3. What would you tell someone when they come to see you? What do we tell everyone listening to this about something they can do without going away for a while. It's something they can do right now because they live here and it's available to them.
First of all, understand that your life is all about making decisions. Making decisions. What are you going to do all day? What are you going to wear? Where are you going to go at night? What restaurant are you going to go to? So you need to be prepared with information so you can make the right decisions. So the one thing is knowing what to do. Second of all, being more conscious of what you can do right now. It has to do with what you eat, how much you eat, the types of foods that you choose. The third thing is make a commitment to the gym or outside walking or riding your bicycle or doing other outside activities that you can do easily in South Florida where you might not be able to do it in any other places. And then don't retire. Don't retire until you absolutely have to. The concept of retirement happened in Germany in the post-World War II era when they had all these people who were young who needed jobs, and they forced people 65 years old to retire. And for some reason, that number has stuck. So it's in our culture that at age 65, you should retire. But there's no reason. People can be just as productive in their 70s and 80s, have just as much information. Now, I'm not so sure I would want a 90-year-old surgeon to do my cataracts, but there reaches a time
I understand.
that that becomes more of an issue. But as far as the intellectual part of it, there's no reason to retire. Keep active, keep busy, keep doing things that you don't know about, keep learning new things, and plan this. And if you make a decision that you want to take pills, supplements, vitamins, be careful what you're taking. You can order all this stuff on Amazon or GNC store, or you can find storefront operations. They'll be happy to sell them to you. But if you're going to make a commitment to spend a lot of money, ask the place where you're going, what are your results? And how many people have you treated with this kind of program? And what are their results? And if they say, well, I treat everybody as an individual, be really careful because a true scientist is going to collect information and be able to tell you that in the last 3 years, I've seen 75 people. The average weight loss was such and such. They live longer, they feel better. Then you're in the hands of somebody who really knows what they're doing. And if you really want to do it and you're interested in it, two things. There are quite a few longevity centers at major medical centers. University of Miami has one. I needed to rattle all them off, but there may be 30 or 40 of them, but they're real scientific people. And follow that kind of protocol. Or if you're interested in trying something new, one of the hot new drugs is called metformin. Metformin is not so new. It's been used for diabetes for a long time, but we also use it for a treatment of a condition called polycystic ovary disease. And how it works is not real clear, but it may do something to control inflammation in the body. And the inflammation may be what's contributing to the aging. And that's the current thinking in the laboratory, that we're seeing chronic inflammation that triggers off all the signs and symptoms of aging. But don't go to your general practitioner who may not understand this. Um, there's something called clinical trials, in which you go to clinicaltrials.gov. It's a government organization that lists all the clinical trials. Many people go who have bad cancers and they don't respond to other treatments, so they look up clinical trials. But there's quite a few clinical trials out there for longevity, and enroll in one of those things and programs and see if that may give you better insight than I might be able to share. So that's sort of what I have to tell you. I hope this is what people are.
It's been great. I think it's so topical in today's world. I think everybody now is, and the reality is people are living longer, but they want a better quality of life. And now people are more available to new ideas.
And I think if people change their lives appropriately and the research scientists do their job and come up with some really good scientifically proved ways to intervene, I really do think in the next 20 years, it's going to be possible to live to 120.
Hmm. I got to remember that. We have to stick around for that. So if we put you in an office up here in the spa, you'll be okay. You'll keep working.
No, better yet, I'll see them in the, I do elliptical machine.
Oh,
Come
there
to
you
my
go.
elliptical and I'd be happy to.
Be very careful what you say because it's going to happen, you know. Anyway, Doctor, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's
Thank you.
fantastic, and it's so important. If somebody wants to get the book, where can they get it?
Amazon.com, type in live to 120, Elliot Levy, and it'll pop right up.
I hope you enjoyed this afternoon. fascinating. Longevity is such a very important topic today. And as the doctor said, we have so many facilities here that can help you. And it's all at your fingertips, all free. You don't have to go any place to benefit from what we offer you. Just to give you a little update on what's been happening, I know everyone's asking me about the Island Club and when it will be opening. And we're happy to say we're starting to fill the pool next week. And if all goes well, by mid-February, early March, everything will be opening up out there. We intend to have our welcome back party on the new island club, and it's moving along beautifully. As for the end of the year, financially, we've ended on a very positive note, better than budget. Our reserves are stronger than ever. We have all the finances necessary, not only to finish the projects that we're doing, but we have put together a 5-year plan of $10 million worth of capital improvements for the island. Whether it be landscaping, we'll be redoing our roads and surfaces, we'll be putting in padel courts on the island, we'll be putting in a new playground, we're going to be putting in a new sports court for the teenagers and young adults. Uh, all kinds of things are going on, and it's something needed. We're also going to be redoing our spa over the next 2 years and upgrading that as well. So we just want you to know, even so we're finishing up on the Island Club, it is not the end of all the capital improvements that we will do into the island. And I always remember people used to say, we'll never be a Puerto Vida, and now in Puerto Vida they say, I wish we could be like Williams Island. And I think that's a testament to what we've accomplished. So I just want to thank you all for watching. And we have a very exciting guest coming up next week who is into Eastern medicines, a little bit more untraditional, but yet quite effective. So I want to thank you for listening. I want you to have a healthy and a happy year. Now that the elections are over, now that all the turmoil is over, we can get back to normalcy again and just stay healthy and happy and enjoy Williams Island. And thank you for listening. And I want to thank the board of directors for all their hard work to make sure that the island is everything that we all want it to be. Have a great day.